Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. People, welcome back to episode
45.
Is it 45?
Yeah.
45.
Last week was 4-4.
Half time in that, done.
Yeah.
I've Jollof after Jummah. Before we get into anything, obviously we've got an announcement to make for the people. That's the most important thing. The second most important thing is the guest that we have. Off camera, what are you saying?
You didn't see him, but he just rolled his eyes.
Yeah, there's a guy here anyway. But yeah, more on that later. Jollof after Jummah, for the in kind of immediate future, foreseeable future, is going to be a fortnightly podcast instead of a weekly podcast. This is after some discussions, with the boys, and with some close friends and advisors and people that are close to us and whose opinions we respect. We, on the whole, feel that in terms of content, we want to make sure that it improves and at the very minimum at least stays at a very, very good level, and that's in terms of how beneficial it is, how entertaining it is. We don't want to kind of get into a rut where we're kind of just filling the airways with
nonsense.
Sound. Yeah, that's just not getting anywhere. And also, I think it's difficult. Alhamdulillah, we've been able to do it for a long time, and inshallah we can continue to do it. But it's difficult to ensure you have good content, good guests, and all that kind of stuff when you're doing it weekly, along with life picking up. We've had marriages.
By the way, that doesn't mean that any of our guests weren't good.
Yeah. No, of course. Obviously, we've had marriages, we've had children being born, we've got stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, life gets on top. So instead of suddenly becoming inconsistent, we felt, let's be realistic, drop it to every 2 weeks, and hopefully, that'll give us more time to impart our ideas, and So don't think this is a sign that we're kind of slowly stopping or anything like that. Definitely not. Inshallah, it's just a what's the word?
Bit of foresight.
Yeah, exactly, foresight.
For those that have been saying, I'm gonna catch up, I'm 5 podcasts behind. This is your time to catch up. You can catch up, and you can keep your consistency and listen to us.
Yeah, man. Any more to say on that?
No.
Cool. So so next week no episode, but the week after inshallah no episode, and then every 2 weeks from that. Moving on from that, we have apparently a guest on the podcast. I know you're not on camera, but are you going to be on the mic as well? Are you going to be on the mic at least?
I'm going to be on the mic.
Are you going to be on the mic? Okay, cool. I don't know, do we have to distort your voice on the Crime Watch thing or not?
You're so dumb.
Alright, cool. Yeah, we got our brother X on the podcast. Brother Ahmed on the podcast. I'm sure someone said his name here before. Obviously, one of the big bros. Obviously, one of the guys, taught us everything we know in that. Yeah, from the curb to the office and that.
Oh, God.
So yeah, man. Obviously, welcome, bro. Jazakallah here for coming. Trying to just give a little brief introduction of yourself.
Yeah, just a brother, Ahmed. I know you brothers from the mosque, obviously, isn't it? So
is he sounding alright? By the way,
we grew up together, and that. You guys are so young, to be fair. Like back then, so it's good to see you guys doing well, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, growing into adults.
This guy's doing well. He's talking.
Allah.
What? Listen, whenever I talk about mentor in life, and I mention Ahmed, this is the Ahmed we're talking about.
There's no Ahmed because you can't see Ahmed.
Okay, this is the Ahmed you'll listen to.
Cool. So obviously he's going to be dropping some pearls on us today. We had something we wanted to discuss. Firstly, that was a listener of ours from across the pond. I won't say where he's from. Sent us a very interesting. I don't want to call it a dilemma, but I guess it is a dilemma. And kind of reached out to offer some nasiha. So what I'm going to do is, and this might not be on the mic, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it, the bulk of it, and then I'm going to summarize it. And then based on what he answers me, if he doesn't want the read out version, I'll cut that bit out when I edit it. So, yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. So let me go to Insta. I've changed some. I'm gonna obviously change some details. So
I'm just gonna add from my side, from my point of view. When it comes to sending us stuff, if it's personal, try and rephrase it to make it in a way that is not personal. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to say we're not experts. We're not. Yeah, sure, we can send it to someone who's more qualified to react to your query in that field.
Which
but
we
we're not.
did.
We're not.
I did, by the way.
We're not. Okay. We're not. Yeah, we're not. Try and seek further. Like, I've always said, don't look to influencers for advice, or by me saying, "Oh yeah, come and send us your problems." That would be a contradiction. But yeah.
Yeah, cool. And what I'll say as well is that, you know, like Dollar said, don't. It's not about. I'd say, don't start saying my sister, you know, Angelina is doing this and this and this and this. We live in her, obviously, but there's obviously. I think people like this brother here, you know, use their discretion, and I don't know who this brother is. All I know is what country he lives in and where he's from in terms of nationality, and that he has a sibling. So if it's, you know, relevant to us, for example, and like you'll see with this one, it's something to do with culture, which obviously we've got experience in because we've all grown up in cultural environments that are kind of intertwined with religious environments. Then yeah, but if it's a question of, you know, is it haram to, you know, should I go to do this, I don't know, issue this thing that could be haram, could be halal. Obviously that's not our area. Best I could do for you is refer you to someone else. But if it's something like this, I don't know, Ahmed, you can chime in if you agree or disagree. If it's something like this, I think I like the fact that, you know, people feel when it comes to these type of issues that we're people that they can reach out to, that there's someone they can reach out to. Because especially from where this guy is, it seems like maybe he's got nothing like this. So
it could just be as well maybe that it's easier to get that advice because he's talking behind the veil, isn't he?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really.
But just remember as well, though, I would say is that majority of issues that people face, it's not like just nuanced to that family. It could be, you know, people face it all over the place. So having that discussion could help someone else who maybe not even is comfortable reaching out to you guys, but now you discussed it, he's had an opportunity.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. My name is X. I am 22 years old. I live in America.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, sirens. This happened when you're recording Brixton, sorry. We should do how many police cars are we going to see count in the thing in the corner for. Yeah, I'm 22 years old, and I live in Australia. I am originally from Tanzania. I have a problem / question. I could use your help. My brother lives in New Zealand and he got married to a Nigerian sister about 3 years ago. And since that happened, there's been a lot of family problems regarding the issue. No one in our community is able to help us, and there aren't people who are willing to put people in good terms. See, this is a key one. This is more of a cultural don't shame the family type of issue / we want you to marry somebody from back home type of issue. What tips and advice can you give from a cultural and Islamic perspective on how we can solve the issue? And can you give an advice for upcoming people who want to get married on how they can go about it the right way without there being any conflicts between children and the parents? Then after asking them for a bit more information, so the brother is around kind of middle-aged, so he's like above 30 years old. He was born back home where they're originally from. And they kind of went to Australia when they were very young. He made the decision on wanting to get married when he was in like university, and he was told to wait a few years until after he finished university. That's one of the things. And then that's when things went downhill for the family. So things went pretty bad between my brother and parents, and that's the biggest issue. Because he got married in New Zealand where he went to university, and we didn't know about it because we were back home, obviously, in Australia. It's not really relevant. It's really more of a, it's a cultural issue. Because they wanted him to marry somebody from within the families, kind of within the, I don't actually know what he means by that, but within the family, maybe this is something specific to their culture, who has the same last name and is from the same tribe, etc. And he was opposed to it. When he got married, my mum and us at the time didn't know, which led to it being problems within our immediate family. He has the proof / evidence to show that the marriage is valid, but my mum wants him to get a divorce. My brother is currently married, obviously, to that sister who's Nigerian, but this problem still hasn't come to an end. It's more of a cultural thing as to why they wanted him to marry someone from within the family. Obviously, because we're talking, there's going to be some repetition. He's only stayed back home, originally where we're from, Tanzania, for 4 years of his life and barely speaks the native language, so he's not really that tied to the culture. We wanted to have a meeting to find out somebody in our community, but I guess just like somebody Islamic, like an imam or something, but because it's more cultural, that's not really relevant, and we don't live around people from our culture, so that's why I wanted to find someone who's kind of a bit more cultural. Doing an episode on this problem and addressing it would help a lot if you guys were able to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I need a summary if I'm honest.
Cool, so let me give a summary as well. So basically, we've got a brother who's from somewhere in Africa who has an older brother who, obviously, they moved from Africa to the West when they were very, very young. And then one of them also left that place in the West and went to another place. So like he went to Australia, and then they went to Australia, and then he went to New Zealand for universities, the kind of thing. And then found somebody and got married quite young without the parents knowing. And this went against the parents' wishes because firstly, they didn't want him to get married young, and they didn't want him to get married to somebody from outside of their village, outside of their tribe, and outside of their family. Like they want somebody with the same family name. I guess that's unique to their culture. And it's caused big issues with the mum kind of not talking to the brother and also kind of saying that he has to get divorced. So it's caused a big divide in the family, which hasn't been able to be reconciled. And obviously they live abroad in New Zealand where they're married, and he's refusing to get a divorce, but the family are just not accepting it, and not accepting the woman, and not accepting him as a result. And it's mainly coming from the mum, so it's kind of like a mother-son feud. And there's no kind of imam or sheikh that can help, and the family are denying the validity of the marriage, even though Islamically the brother has the proofs, and obviously we know Islamically he doesn't technically need the permission of his mum and dad to get married. Yeah. So yeah, that's the situation. It's a sticky one, isn't it?
Tough one.
It's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
First thing I would say is to the brother, not the brother who inquired, but the brother who is married to the Nigerian, is be a man in it. You took this sister from her home, you married her. As we mentioned, you didn't need your mother or your father's permission to marry the sister. You've now taken the sister from her home. If this was too much for you, then you shouldn't have married the sister. You've now married the sister, so be a man and take care of the sister. From what is said, you have no valid reason to divorce her, apart from the fact that your mother said she should divorce her. And also, the reason why your mum wanted you to divorce her is it's not a reason that is acceptable in Islam. Because from what I understood, the mother wants him to divorce her solely for tribal reasons, right?
Yeah, because they don't want him to be married to her. Basically, they want him to be married to somebody else.
And that's not acceptable in Islam.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
I do think, obviously, I don't want to make assumptions on the brother because we don't really know. He's not even the one who emailed us. It was messaged or whatever, innit? So as far as I'm going to assume that he's looking after his wife.
And he's asking, he wants to stay married to her.
And he wants to stay married to his wife. And he wants to reconcile with his mum. I'm going to talk about it from that perspective because there's no point speculating on other stuff.
Obviously, this situation is different. This situation is about a brother marrying someone. But you'll be surprised how many people listening to this would be able to resonate with the situation. Not because of the brother marrying someone that the mother didn't want, but especially in other cultures that I know of from brothers in the UK, brothers marrying someone where in their culture the wife takes care of the mother, and the mother's difficult to deal with, or the wife can't meet the demands of the mother. So I feel like them kind of people in that situation, even though it's a different situation, them people in that situation listening to this will also be able to resonate with this. And again, I would say to them, you need to put your wife's feelings and your wife's interests first.
Yeah.
you got married again. You took this sister from the house of her father and you brought her into your house with your mother. If, as we know, Muslims,
No, they
if
don't
the wife
live together.
wants,
They don't live together.
Who don't live together?
What do you mean?
You said
Yeah,
the brother does. The brother and his wife don't live with the mum.
They live
in a different country.
No, I'm not talking about this specific scenario. I'm talking about scenarios where
they
I give
live.
the
Okay, they live in the same
example
house.
of the
Okay.
mother
My bad.
terrorizing them. Yeah. So in like there are many scenarios where the wives are often, not even this scenario, many scenarios in general where the wives are often neglected or mistreated because of pressures or burdens placed on the husband from the parents, and a lot of the time for the incorrect reasons, for reasons that are not valid in Islam. And that's why I just say, look, be a man. You married this sister, you took her from her father, take care of her. Whatever your parents are telling you to do, if it doesn't coincide with Islam, it shouldn't be followed. It shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's obviously where the problem lies.
Yeah.
That it seems like the parents are taking a different route and they're not looking at it from an Islamic perspective, where obviously we know that those reasons aren't valid and Islam doesn't necessarily see cultures and races. We just know each other as Muslims. So deciding that you don't want your son to be married to another Muslim because she isn't from the same tribe as you isn't a valid reason for it, or isn't valid grounds for a divorce. So yeah, I guess we're trying to offer advice from that kind of angle, and I guess it can be difficult when it comes to parents, especially if you're the one that's trying to educate your parent on a certain issue. And you can get parents that don't necessarily want to listen to advice from their children, or people that are younger from them, people that are younger than them,
or people that are not from where they're from.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people listening to this that would have just been like, "Oh, just tell the parents to fear Allah." But in real life, in reality, it's not that simple. A lot of these parents, they don't. The religion's not at the forefront it's not their biggest priority in life.
For me,
otherwise we wouldn't be discussing this.
I think. Ahmed, do you want to go? No. I think like when it comes to parents, especially cultured parents, I think the first thing you have to do is try to appeal. So like, do you know they say in like interviews, a shared agenda. Mm-hmm. So what things do you have in common? What goals or ultimate goals or aspirations do you both have? So for parents, often the easiest way to appeal to them is to say, at the end of the day, your parent, your child's happiness is important to you, right? And generally, especially if they're not, in a state of anger, they can agree that my child's happiness is somewhat important to me. And I think it's almost like you have to use that as your angle to try and break down some barriers. So I think it's never good. This is the kind of thing, I don't think it's ever going to be something that you deal with in one swoop or one meeting type of thing. But I think the most important thing is that firstly, you kind of have to establish conversation. So you have to, as talking to the guy who sent the email, obviously you're going to basically have to be the mediator in a lot of this, it seems, because you're the one who seems to be really on it to try to kind of find a solution.
That's another thing that I thought of as well.
Yeah, go on.
Obviously, I don't know, I'm speaking ignorantly here, but from what I've read, I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but
Robert doesn't care.
Yeah,
maybe.
Situations
and
like that
I think it is upon him to make sure that this situation is reconciled,
for his brother's sake and his parents' sake,
even though your mother's reason for asking you for a divorce isn't valid, at the end of the day, paradise lies at the feet of your mother, and you do need to ensure that your mother is happy. So it is upon
strive
you
to make her happy.
It is upon you
to
to find some sort of resolution to this situation. So it's not something that I think that you can, or that we should encourage you to just leave it on the side. It is something that you do need to sort out. Also, I think another thing I've maybe kind of gleaned from that is that maybe the mum and the wife don't know each other.
No, I don't think so either.
That's what it seems like.
It just seems like he just met her at school and married her.
And they don't actually know each other.
Yeah.
And that could be another way of breaking down barriers if your mum knows this sister and can see that you make each other happy and that she's good for you, that will.
I'm not sure, you know. Would you bring this? Would you try to make them meet, the sister and the?
You could try that.
Do you think?
Why wouldn't you?
Because if it goes wrong,
I mean,
to me that would be like once you've established that everything's fine, then you bring her in.
Okay.
The reality is though, because I know someone in the exact same situation, a bit older though, and the reality is he's been married now for maybe 6-7 years maybe, and his mum still has a problem. So so I think, if I'm honest, the onus really lies on the husband or the older brother that's messaged you guys, because I think
there's no dispute in that.
If you were to balance it on a scale, the mum versus the wife, they both weigh a massive level of importance in your life, right?
Yeah.
100%.
So I think once the husband or the brother that recognizes that, then I think he needs to just do all he can do to try and just be the intermediary, but more so for the sake of Allah, more so with the intention that that understanding, not necessarily that I want my mum to be happy with my wife or my wife to be happy with my mum, but more so understanding their importance in his life. Does that make sense? Because I feel like if he's the middleman and he understands that his wife means a lot to him and his mum means a lot to him, then it's I think it's easier and you have a bit more patience to endure, if that makes sense, rather than do you know what, it's just not working, I forget mum, my wife's my life, so it's okay. Do you know what I'm saying? But when he recognises they're both really important, because like I said, this brother that I'm talking about, she didn't go to the mum didn't go to the wedding.
Wow.
Didn't come to the first nikah, to the first akikah for the first child.
Wow.
Yeah. So like it was big stuff, and I think it's only recently that she started looking after the child. The daughter can come around. So it takes time, and it won't happen overnight. But what I do know is that the brother that I know, he's very like he's like, he understood that he doesn't just want to shun his mum. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he understood that he doesn't just want to leave his wife. Do you see what I'm saying? So it kind of like, he just kept on going.
Yeah. What was his relationship at the worst of it with his mum? Did it ever break down? Not like him and his wife and his mum, but just him and his mum.
It broke down. So that obviously there are times where like he just didn't interact with his family. He was more interacting with his wife and their family. In fact, to be honest with you, when we speak and some of the things that we discuss and stuff, he's probably closer to his wife's family than he is his own family. Because that doesn't just, luckily enough for this brother, he has an older brother looking out for him. With the brother I know,
younger even.
Or a younger brother, he's looking up, but he's got a brother looking, as in, someone's looking out for someone, though, right? Yeah. But with the brother I know, it affected how also his siblings treat him too. Okay. Because they kind of sided with their mum, like, you're making mum upset. So do you know what? We don't want anything to do with you either. Yeah. So, you got to keep plugging away. I think it's a long road, to be honest. I think what you find with like relationships, marriages, etc.
When children come into the picture,
not just that. I think people face different issues. Okay. Some people, it could be a financial thing. The husband and wife, families, everyone is hunky-dory, everything's great. But finances could be their thing. And some people, finance isn't the issue, but maybe it could be the in-laws is the issue. And then some people, it couldn't be that. It might be, for example, living accommodation, for example, or like, status in terms of stay in the country, etc. So everybody has some kind of vice, that they have to kind of toil and work at and be patient with. And I think, so I think really and truly, I think both of them need to understand that, they both women in their lives play a massive part. And then also, when if you have a daughter, it'll be like the daughter versus the mum kind of thing, and then playing the intermediary role again. So it's, I think more so, then he's been understanding that the road is long. It's not a short road, to be honest. And there's no one answer that anyone can give that would do it. 'Cause he can try his wife meeting his mum. That might help, that might not help. But then he has to try something different. Maybe he just leaves the wife out from any family events, but he goes to family events. So it's not like his wife taking him away from his family. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. And then talk to his missus like, I'm sorry, you can't come for a while, but this is the reasoning why.
And I'm aiming, it's a long,
so it's a long road, and you got to keep trying different things, to be fair.
You want to say something?
No.
Just to kind of piggyback off that, it's like what you said. I think that relationship between the brother who's married and his mum regardless of the wife. And obviously, like you said, communication with the wife is going to be essential in this. But he needs to make sure that they maintain a good relationship, even if it means that, for example, I'm very close to my mum and I don't mention her. We just don't mention it. We don't talk about it. Or, you know what I mean? I don't try and bring it up all the time. That you just maintain some sort of good relationship so that my mum's okay to talk to me, that the love is there. And then what you'll find is, inshallah, if you can kind of see how the son's life is made better, how he's uplifted by the woman, and you can almost start to see this wife as a source of my child's happiness, then, you know, by proxy, maybe that you know, if not love but acceptance of the wife can develop from there. Obviously, we haven't said it, but dua, obviously, and just constant, you know, praying for Allah to kind of ease this affair is going to be essential, because, you know, Allah's the turner of heart, so it's always going to be based on, you know, that's always going to be the catalyst. I think, go on.
One thing I was going to say before even both of you spoke was in regards to let's say we have Husnadan and we know that the brother's doing all he can to try and as a man reconcile between his mother and his wife, and try and bridge the relationships between the two. One thing I would say in regards to that is, as both of you have said, is to continue to have patience, and as you said, make dua, because in most scenarios that I've heard of like this, 90% of the time, stuff tends to usually change once children enter the picture. Once children enter the picture, Allah has a way of softening people's hearts, and I feel like that, in combination with you just, especially when it comes to the parents, just trying to make a relationship better in general, so that you can, for example, give that away to your parents. Because again, you don't need it. That was not something that you can just tell your parents and they listen. Sometimes it can be through actions, it can be through the way you behave, it can be through, they might see a change in your behavior that's positive, because they've known you all your life, right? They can see a change in the pattern of your behavior, and they think, okay, maybe it's because you got married. Ever since you got married, you've changed. What's causing this change in this brother? Maybe it's the wife. Okay, I need to meet this wife that I've never met before. Maybe she's having a good effect on him, blah, blah, blah. That stuff like that can help.
Diffusion.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Also, as well, by the way, I think it shouldn't always be seen and looked at from the side of the brother that, I did something for the sake of Allah and my mum doesn't like it, but I'm impatient with it. Understanding that his mum would obviously want the best for him. You know, her wanting him to be married to someone within their culture, it could be a cultural thing, but even that stems from a place of goodness. And that there's some benefit that comes with also marrying someone from your culture.
100%.
So it shouldn't just be like, I did this thing and I'm okay doing this thing because Islamic, I don't have to divorce her. I'm going to be patient with you because I want you to come around to my correct way of seeing. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily, he's more correct than she is. It's just that, unfortunately, the way things have turned out, that it's not maybe in accordance with what she would have liked. So, so don't, because I think when you understand it and see it from that point of view, how you interact with your mum is completely different.
Because that's something like getting married against the wishes of your parents. It's not something to be proud of. Like it's not obviously it's not, as we said, it's not forbidden, it's not haram, but it's something that where possible should be avoided.
100,
So that there has to be kind of in his exchanges with his mum and in your as the mediator, or brother, that message as in the kind of when you're mediating, you need to speak to your brother on that, and you need to make it clear to your mum, for her to even have respect for your opinion. You need to make it clear that you very much understand where she's coming from. It's not that you're just trying to get her to understand what your brother's saying, like what Ahmed just said. It's that, yes, mum, at the end of the day, he's wrong. You don't even tell her just say he's wrong because, African parents. But just like, at the end of the day, he's our brother. I want to be close to my brother. And, guilt trip. There's so many, like, do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Mummy, my brother, my brother, you know what I mean? Why isn't he coming for Eid? Like, it's sad, mum. I miss my brother. Like, our little siblings. They're not gonna have our brother. It's not good. Same thing with your dad as well. Try to appeal if dad is in the picture, inshallah. Try to appeal to dad, like, mum, like, come on, soft, talk to mummy. And obviously as well, like you said, people. There's not someone from your country around. There's also people. Obviously technology. There might be some alpha or something back home that you can appeal to, maybe through your family back home, that is maybe kind of more firm with the deen and kind of holds the culture less tightly when it comes to culture versus deen issues that maybe they respect, and he can speak as well. Obviously your parents, if they're the type of people that don't want you to be blurting blah 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 all around, then avoid that. But obviously your parents more than me. Discretion. But I think I think in terms of practicality, like action plan, because I know we're just saying bare stuff. I think the first thing is establish some sort of good communication. Try to help both parties understand why each party feels that way and make sure that there's a respect. And lastly, just kind of make sure that the brother maintains that kind of respect for the mum and shows it in every way. And and obviously that he talks to his wife. And obviously I assume he's doing with the things he should be doing at home. I don't know if there's anything else to add. I don't want to just like
keep going around in circles.
What about like with us anyway? Because obviously we have experiences with culture impacting on our lives, especially when it comes to religious matters. Like in general, what do you think the solution is to, not to, because obviously like we do not want to remove culture from ourselves and from our parents, we don't, but to rid our culture from things, or rid our practicing of our culture from things that kind of go against Islam. Like, what do you think? And for our parents, because some people say just leave them because they're old and they're not going to change. Some people say be strict with them. Some people say pick your battles. What do you think is the best way?
Education.
That's what I think.
Education from below or education from above?
It really does depend on your relationship with your parents, I think. Something I've noticed in my family is that as we've kind of grown up and your parents start to treat you with a little bit more respect and see you as a bit more of an adult, they're more susceptible to hearing your advice on things. So whereas before it might have been, you're my child, I don't want to hear that. If your parents have seen you grow, they know that you have all your things in order, you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of yourself, and they respect you in a sense, then they're 100%, they're more susceptible to hearing your opinion on things. And something actually happened with my mum last week where she suggested something, and I gave her my opinion and said that I understand what you're saying, I get where you're coming from, but this might be a better way of doing things. And she took it. Like, she didn't argue. Like, not that she's argumentative, but she basically accepted what I said and said, yeah, okay, fine, I don't have a problem with that. Let's run with that.
Did she have a headache?
No, she didn't. No. But she just ran with it. So yeah, I think education and definitely and that thing that you mentioned before about having good communication with your parents and making sure that basically you and your parents are tight in it, and then through things like that, having good relationship with your parents and educating them from the right place as well, then I think that can be an easy way of getting through to them. I mean, I think dealing with individuals is much easier than dealing with like an entire community. So I couldn't maybe go to a masjid full of people that are heavily culturing, give them a talk and expect them overnight to stop doing all of the culture stuff that they're doing. But if I talk to my parents and then auntie's son talks to or my friend talks to his mum, that's individuals are easy to deal with than communities. Yeah.
Ahmed? I've got a follow-up question that might help you answer.
I think, like I said, I just think that it does take, I think first and foremost anyway, like if you want to be treated like an adult, you have to behave like one, right? So I think sometimes like a game of chess, if I'm honest. Like, you have to give a little and take a little. You might sacrifice a pawn to get, I don't know, the king in a better position, if that makes sense. So I think, especially when it's like you said, if it's like an intimate thing, parents, uncles, aunties, etc., like a one-on-one, one-on-two kind of situation, then I think, like you said, the best thing is to communicate. Sometimes, I'll be real with you, you have to be very like blunt, straight, and like, you know, this is right, this is why I'm not doing X and Y and Z. And I understand, but you know, it can be delivered in a way. It's like, I understand your point of view. I appreciate what you're saying. However, this is X, Y, and Z. And there's some things you can be a bit like, okay, do you know what, Mum? This time I'm gonna do it, but next time I'm seriously like, I don't feel comfortable doing X, Y, and Z, or dad, or uncle, auntie. Do you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't always have to be like a tug of war. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can give a bit sometimes. And sometimes, you know, you got to be a bit firm. It just comes back
to using wisdom and know when to do certain things, and know when to say certain things, coming forth in a respectful manner, etc.
Yeah. Because you know what? Sorry. Because you know what? The thing is, you know, sometimes we get. It's an interesting concept, I swear to you, because as you get older, you see it a lot as well. Because obviously, you know, our parents and uncles, aunties, etc., they were brought up in a certain way, a certain culture, a certain, you know, environment, etc. So they're only used to what they know. And we're brought up in a different time, culture, environment, etc. Do you know what I'm saying? So when they're speaking, it isn't necessarily to undermine you, to make you feel small or unimportant, etc. Or even to control your life. They're just giving you what they know. And that isn't to say that what they know is completely wrong. Yeah. Because you're also going based on what you know from a different time. So, you know, it is a give and take. It is a wisdom thing. It's a lot of things, to be fair. And I think that you see it, that as you get older, then you see younger people who say completely different things to what you know. You think, no, I've seen this scenario before. I know this scenario. Do this. And they're like, what are we talking about? No, I don't want it. What are we talking about? So it's a tricky one, but I do feel like as you get older with your parents especially, I feel like the older you get, personally for me anyway, you become closer and closer because you can open up more. But you also can accept more of what they have to say because you see it and you can relate more. Do you see what I'm saying? So, yeah, the cultural thing is an interesting concept. I think on a massive scale, I think like a bigger scale in terms of like, you know, masjids, communities, etc. Yeah,
masjid is what I was going to get to.
I think that's an interesting one. I'll be honest with you. I think because it's really interesting, especially being African. Yeah. Because in my opinion, I think African people have. Their pride is their, what's that word?
Their mantle.
No. Is like how you're perceived. Okay. Do you see what I'm saying?
Perception is
the perception. Their pride is their perception. Do you see what I'm saying? So for example, you know, you want to be blunt with one uncle in the mosque. No, you shouldn't do that. As soon as you do that, you're perceived as a naughty person or as a bad boy or something like that. You see what I'm saying? Your parents don't want people to be like, oh, my son's a bad boy. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So like, it's like, oh, don't worry, just listen to him. It's okay, don't worry. Oh, I understand your point. Don't worry, Ahmed, it's fine, it's fine. But just follow what he's saying because they don't want their child or anyone related to them, close to them, to be seen in a certain situation. Does that make sense? Like, so I think, their pride and joy is the perception that we as a community, as a reputation have as a family. Do you know what I'm saying? Like family name and that kind of stuff is a big deal. And I think that's why it's so tricky when it comes to communities and stuff, because if you want to be honest and speak out on something that could condemn or be opposed to the masses, it's like you're the minority and they're the majority. And then it's like,
I hear that, but at the end of the day, going back to what I was saying, there's certain stuff where I think if we're talking about that, what we need to work on more as a community is making sure that that reputation, as a priority, it's lesser than a religion. To know that if we are told that X, Y, and Z is wrong or whatever, that should mean that should sink in and that should matter to us
rather than
more.
the person's reputation. But I hear exactly what you're saying, and I think the way you've put that, I think you've actually put that perfectly. That you said their pride is like the way they're perceived is by their pride. So because there's something else that another brother has mentioned to me very recently about, I don't want to go into detail about it, but basically kind of what you were touching on there, that people might not want to take from a certain person because of what they know about them, even though the knowledge that they're given might be correct, but they might not want to hear it from a particular party because of whatever they've done. And that could even be a way that we could use to get through to people on like a community level. You asked the question before, you said, is it from above or from below? In terms of like a community, I feel like the best way to progress for a community has to be from below, because at the end of the day, it's people that below that are going to take over. So if we work on training the people that are coming from below to have the best of knowledge, then eventually over time, that community will become a highly esteemed community because we've trained up people, we give them the right knowledge and X, Y, and Z.
Like the prophets, basically.
Yeah.
But you know what? So here's an interesting concept, because I understand what you're saying and I agree in terms of below, right? And if you take it back to like the Sailor, and when the message first came about, you know, it was in like that like, kind of secretive house, like no one knew about. And even when they, you know, Sahaba were asking, no, let's go and proclaim and let's just make it and he's like, no. So what I'm saying is that even though you might have the right answer to the solution, i.e. Islam, right, is how you go about disseminating that information. So if you want the youngsters or the younger people to come and be the ones to bridge that gap or, you know, change the direction, etc., things and stuff like that, I think first and foremost, those youngsters need to understand that, you have the answer, but the most important thing is how you give that. Yeah, because I think something, you got to find some kind of equilibrium somewhere.
One of my always says is like that, knowledge without wisdom is useless.
Useless. 100%.
So, like, the way I wanted to take it, and I had this conversation with one of the bros, well known, his name gets mentioned a lot, but he's never here. That when it comes to Nigerians, obviously we have the big As-salatu culture, which for those who don't know is kind of like the Nigerian
Sunday service.
Yes, the Nigerian Muslim Sunday service, where essentially what you get when you have a Nigerian mosque, you have, you know, your praise and worship sessions, which I don't want to do it in this service, but would you say there might be, let's say, Sufi elements?
100%.
Is that what? I don't know. What's the best way to put it? I might cut that out because
at the end of the day,
how would you describe it? What's an as-salatu? How would we describe as-salatu?
Sunday service.
Sunday service.
At the end of the day, all we need to do is ask ourselves: is this from the Sunnah? And if it's not, then what is it?
But how would you describe as-salatu? Because I want to define it for people that don't know before we speak on it. Because
do you know what they do? They give some nasiha, they give lectures and stuff like that, but they also make dhikr together. Yeah. And they do it in congregation. Is practically what they do.
Yeah. And it's very, you can feel the Nigerian, Yoruba, whatever culture in the vibe in what they're doing, whether it's, you know, the kind of singing, the tonation of how they're cool. So there's elements of that. That kind of forms the backbone of, you know, your Nigerian Muslim congregation in a lot of mosques, especially the ones kind of in our area. And that's the kind of culture that we've grown up in.
To be fair,
go on.
That's the one that we've grown up in. I haven't seen that. There's a couple other Nigerian mosques I know. I don't know that they do that.
It's a thing.
No, man, it's a thing.
Okay.
I don't know any Nigerian mosque that doesn't do
that.
Even in Nigeria, do that as well. They do the same thing.
Oh, okay. I was ignorant to
and obviously within that, there's other elements, but obviously we don't want to start exposing. Do you know what I mean? But there's other elements of you know, the Nigerian Muslim culture within us that are, shall we say, you know, not best practice. So us, as the younger generation, the older generation, you'll constantly hear, you know, we want your presence. We want you to kind of, you know, we want to hand the keys to the mosque over to you guys and you lot to take over. That's why we brought you here. But at the same time, what you'll hear is that when the younger generation try to kind of impart their way of operating, way of kind of managing, you know, the mosque and how, you know, religion, how the da'wah should be, there's a tension because it, you know, it's going against the culture, it's too far away from the culture, or people won't like it. So just to finish here, so there's the adults, to summarize, adults saying, we want you to kind of, you know, you're the youth, we want you to take over, blah blah blah. But then when the youth maybe show signs of trying to take over but doing it in their way, there might be a pushback, and often the result, the pushback to that is, okay, fine, we're just gonna go and do our own things. We're gonna go to this and this institution,
Yeah.
like the one we're in now, for example, MCO, or what other things like this, and we're gonna, learn the religion and practice religion in our own way amongst our own people, and almost make our own.
Yeah, because
Make our own
100%. Yeah.
What's the word? Make our own community almost. Not. Am I saying this? You sound not make our own community, but we're gonna do our own thing almost, and we're not really gonna pay too much mind. We're not gonna pay too much mind.
To do the correct thing.
Yeah, we're not gonna pay too much mind to what you're doing, and we're not gonna strive to come to your services to be a part of the inner workings of what's going on in the mosque, except for obviously the youth. But I guess based on the conversation we was having with the brother yesterday, it's like, what is our responsibility to this group? Because almost, if you're going to learn and you're going to teach, for example, if you're walking past, it's almost like you're walking past the problem to go and solve a problem somewhere else. But on your way, you've seen a problem. So shouldn't this be? Isn't this the wrong you're meant to remove before you start going to remove wrongs in other places? I guess it's kind of that similar to that kind of communal responsibility argument again, but obviously a different context. Like, what do we think? That's another one of Abdul Malik's long asked questions. But what's our responsibility to that situation?
Looking at me.
Yeah, you're the senior amongst us.
I think the reality is that we're not ready to take that responsibility on, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because saying I said identifying the problem is the easy part. That's the easy thing. Anybody can do that. That's not rocket science. I think finding a solution is what takes, courage, intelligence, wisdom, 100%. Everything. And I think specifically we're talking about, I think some of the times where they've mentioned and they've said, we want you to come along, and they've asked, some of the knowledgeable people amongst us to do the lectures and stuff like on the Friday, etc. And initially, we went and we showed face, etc. But then we stopped turning up.
Yeah.
So how is you can only give the keys to someone who's present, right?
Present, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? You can only offer suggestions for someone who generally wants to understand first and foremost what is, because the issues that we say that might be present within the community, within the message, etc. is only what we see from a distance. We're not really inside like that. And I say that on a consistent basis.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And before you say that, I know you're gonna look and say no, but we've gone to a couple of meetings here and there, but that's not the majority of us.
Yeah. Fair.
That's the minority of us.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more commitment from us, and there needs to be, like I said, just like the other question, answer, and etc. Is that the road's long, man? Because you know what? Sometimes we fail to understand is that there could be more reward in being patient with the situation that we currently have at hand and the mosque, and trying to help find a resolution on all fronts, than for someone to just go somewhere else and just practice the way they think is right to practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you might not even be making that much of an impact in the masjid, in the community, etc. But the intention is to make an impact, and you might not necessarily be making that much of an impact. But there could be more reward in that than going and finding the easier thing to do at your local, or coming somewhere different, going somewhere different, and saying, well, actually, they do it right here, so I'm gonna do it right there. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think sometimes you need to look at it like, you honestly, there's never one side to anything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I'm sure there's a hadith, I can't remember exactly how the word for word, but in summary, it's like there's not one person who can practice all the aspects of the religion, and then he won't be overpowered by that. Do you see what I'm saying? So that our parents are doing the most and the best they can do from what they have and what they know. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't, I think, I get what you're saying, and I'm also on the side, on you guys' side, by the way, but I'm just saying, in terms of from a middle ground perspective, being right, finding the issues, that's the easiest part, to be honest. Anybody can do that. For any issue in life, find the problem. Fixing that problem and implementing those things is where the difficulty comes in.
So do you think it's right to almost subject yourself
Strong word, bro.
I know it's a strong word. It is a strong word. That's why you even heard me. I started it when I said it. Okay, for want of a better word, subject. And when I say subject, what I mean is you're for the sake of being present, attending an as-salatu, for example.
Right.
Because as we know, like obviously Islamic, principle of fiqh is obviously forgo, like removing.
Yeah, I
personally
wouldn't sit through that.
Good. Huh?
I wouldn't personally sit through that.
Yeah,
100. But if we're gonna go with, maybe the next best thing is to be more present. Maybe in their meetings and that kind of stuff, being present in maybe the salam, being present in their lectures, etc. Maybe even missing out that salati completely and just going just for the lectures after. Do you know what I'm saying? So so they see you, you're around.
Because it's true. Because it is 100%. It's the presence in the masjid. I think that is kind of the most important thing to them. And once they see that you are present, they start handing more responsibility to you.
Do you think though that the responsibility is always going to be limited to, you can have responsibility and you can have these roles, but overall it's going to be, you're still going to have to kind of dance to our tune. So you're going to have to do whatever responsibility we give you. You're going to have to do it within the framework that we set. So you can't set the agenda. You can enact our agenda.
That's until you can make it your own. Because
are you going to be allowed to? That's what I mean.
Okay, I'll use myself as an example. I was initially, I guess, helping out at America's. Again, I was just being present, not necessarily asking for more responsibility. I was just helping out America's, and then eventually
America's, which is
Islamic Studies and Quran,
the kids' school,
and then
madrasa.
And then they asked me to join the executive committee, and like I said, I think from there, yes, you 100% kind of have to dance to the beat of their drum, and then but if I was, let's say now, more present, I guess I could continue to progress from that role. So from youth and sports officer, then I could become the health executive, and then I could become the vice president, and I could become the president, and then from that point, then I can kind of start changing things from there.
I'm saying the narrative is still that there's an issue. I want to change that. And metaphorically speaking, think about it like this. So this is metaphorically speaking, but the same concept, right? When you're an adult, obviously, when you're younger, you do exactly what your parents say. Yeah. You go to school, you come back, you make salah, you wash the plates, you tidy the house, whatever. As you get older, you get a bit more responsibility. No one even needs to even tell you to wash the plates. Sometimes you go wash the plates. You go out a bit longer. You just say, I'm going out. Do you know what I'm saying? There's there might be, go out, but then they give you the time you got to get back by. Then as you get older, you might go out and you don't need to give a time. But you know yourself what time is a responsible time to get back from. You know what I'm saying? And then you get married and then you leave and you have now a household to maintain. But when you have a child, or when you, for example, you get married and stuff, when it comes to Eid and stuff, you do things as a family, as a big family, if that makes sense. You have a child, you have, a naming ceremony, etc. But the parents give names. You might have a whole long list of names and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to get at is that, you're gaining more and more responsibility, and more you're able to fine tune what you want to do, but the culture never leaves. So it's not about getting to the president's spot and then saying, well, I will do it my way now. Do you know what I'm saying? Because that culture itself comes with a lot of good as well. Do you know what I'm saying? So like, even as a 31-year-old person right now, there's still things that my mum and dad will still say to me that I would do. It doesn't just leave. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't go, well, I'm old enough now. I've got kids. And,
obedience to,
do you see what I'm saying? So, and I feel like, and what they say, what they bring is the culture. Do you see what I'm saying? What they add to your life is that culture. And to say that, it'll be good for us to get to a certain point, a pinnacle, and then we just like, not radically change, but like just change it. We're losing out, if I'm honest. Because there are some things that we should carry on through that is a part of our identity. That is something we should be happy and proud of. You see what I'm saying?
I think I 100% agree. I think there is a whole another side to this as well, though, that I have heard a couple of people saying that although the masjid is kind of where we were brought up and where we will know each other from, some people say that they don't feel any responsibility or obligation to the masjid. Just because their parents attended and they still attend now doesn't mean that I have to, or doesn't mean that I have to take the keys and hand over.
We have about 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Ahmed, bismillah. Cool.
No, you gotta. No.
Huh?
What was I gonna say? I've given you enough bites during that podcast. I don't know. No, I don't know what bites you want now. You're gonna bite my cake now.
Alright, cool. Let me find something. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. For a quick bites of Jollof, I've said it's quick, but we'll see if it's quick. I'm going to be talking a little bit about one of the hadith in Imam Nawawi's 40 hadith. It's the 9th, which covers the fact that responsibility in Islam is within one's capacity. So just reading, I'll just do the English of the hadith. Narrated from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He stated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam addressed us and said, O people, Hajj has been made obligatory upon you, so perform the Hajj. So a man asked, is that every year, O Messenger of Allah? So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam remained silent until the man repeated his question 3 times. Then he said, if I had said yes, then it would become obligatory upon you, i.e. every year. And you would not have been able to do so. Do not ask me about that which I have left unspecified, for verily the nations before you were destroyed by their excessive questioning and their disagreeing with their prophets. So if I order you with something, then do as much of it as you are able, and if I forbid you from something, then keep away from it. So there's a couple benefits that I think can be taken from this hadith. The first one is the kind of principle in Islam that when it comes to prohibitions and commands, within prohibitions, the expectation amongst all Muslims, and this is consistent, is that if we're told that something is forbidden, then we must avoid it in its entirety. It doesn't mean you do it. You only do a little bit if you can only avoid a little bit. It doesn't mean that. It means that you don't do it at all. And the reason for this is because when it comes to not doing something, you'll find that the not doing something doesn't require an ability. However, to do something, i.e. to pray, it requires an ability. It requires an ability to stand, an ability to read a surah. And what you'll find is that what we're told is that if we have a disability or an inability to perform certain aspects, then we do what we can. For example, if you can't pray standing up, you pray in a chair. And that kind of concept and that principle kind of extends completely throughout Islam. The second one is that when it comes to questioning, as Muslims, we are given commands, and in a lot of cases, Allah or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his kind of explanation in like the Ilah will give us an explanation of why we're meant to do something. And as people, it is upon us and it's allowed for us to question these things, but only if it is to gain understanding. Because if we're amongst those who kind of question constantly just for the sake of trying to find an excuse not to do what we were commanded, or questioning just for the sake of negation, then you'll find that that will put you amongst the people who are kind of who are the ones that in the past would go against their prophets, go against their messengers, and those are the people who are going to be kind of destroyed, because it shows a lack of sincerity and it shows kind of a disease in the heart that drives a person to kind of naturally want to go against what he's been commanded to do. So kind of takeaway and the implication in our lives is that when it comes to kind of our ibadah and things that are expected of us, things that we should do, our good deeds, the same way that zakat is 2.5% of what you're able to do. So Ahmed has £1 million in his account. 2.5 is different from the £100 that I have in my account. So how much he's paying is different. So it's an example. It shows that if you bring that to Quran, to different types of charity, to our sunnah prayers, our da'wah, our capabilities are going to be different. So there's no point in looking next to you and looking right, looking on the left and looking at the right, because not only is that going to kind of ruin and destroy your intentions, it's also deceptive, because what we are going to be accountable for with Allah is how much did we do compared to what we could have done. So that's just kind of a couple benefits from that hadith. As normal, anything I've said that is wrong is from the shaitan, myself, and anything I've said is correct from Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, man. Anything to add on that just before we wrap?
Nope.
Sweet. Cool.
Farewell. Assalamu alaikum.
Yep. Cool, man. See you in 2 weeks, inshallah.
Yeah.
I know it's jazakallah here to all the staff and the brothers at Medina College for allowing us to record here as well, man. May Allah reward them and continue to uplift what they do. Obviously, check out their website. I'm sure you know of them. If you know us, you definitely know them. So, yeah, man. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.